Hey, it's W5HRO. Well, I got an update on this amplifier. It's been working great and everything. I've been having a blast with it. I like to use it up on 17 meters. It works great on 40. I played around with it down on 80. And down on 80, I get like about 950, 960 watts out of it. I haven't tried it on 160 yet. I was going to do it in the dummy load. I bet I get the full 1,000 watts when I tune it up on CW. You put it on CW tune, which really exceeds the plate current range, but that's how you peak it out, for intermittent use like that when you're tuning and stuff. It'll probably do a full 1,000 down on 160. On 17 meters, I've been using it on the 20 meter band position. I get almost full power out. I get like about 890 watts out of it or something. It's almost 900, so it's pretty wild. I was looking here at the tuned input board. This is like I said, this is the very first AL-80. It was like the last production run after they fixed all the major design errors. And what I'm doing is I've got it apart. I'm going to go through it. I'm going to make some of the final updates to it and just check everything, clean stuff up, change a few of the caps, here and there. But the main thing I'm doing is, one more thing. When I get on 17 meters, I can tell these tuned input circuits have never been touched. That stuff they put on there, that orange sealer to lock the variable capacitor, nut down, or the screw, they've never been touched. So when I get on 17, luckily the new modern transceivers like my 590SG has the built-in antenna tuner. And I've heard this from other people in the past. I knew one other guy that had one of these, and what would happen is he'd have to tune up on he'd tune up, but he'd get like the power would be too low. Then he'd hit the AT button on the transceiver and the power would come up because you're matching the input, which is what this board is supposed to do. Because what I'm going to do is, I hate 20 meters. I never operate 20 meters anyway. So since this thing works on 20 meters, that's where I load it. That's what band position it works on. I'm going to peak the 220 meter caps to peak it for 20 for 17 meters, so I get the input down to a 1-to-1 SWR without having to use the built-in antenna tuner in the transceiver. But I'm always going to use that anyway as a safety precaution. But that, I really don't want to use the amp on 20. I'm going to use it on 17 more than I will 20. And if I have to use the built-in AT to tune it to get it matched 100% on 20, I'll do that. And it doesn't have the 10 meter section in it, and I'm not sure how I would do it. There is no band position for the for the 10 meter section. Did I say 20 or 10? I'm talking about 10. And I could add, there's a red wire that you're supposed to switch to that would click. The export models had one more relay here, one more cap, not two. It had one more cap and then one more coil. I could probably match this coil and wind another one with less turns for 10. I could add 10 to this unit. I just don't know if see, this is going to be for 15 here, I think. That might actually work that tap on that final coil might actually work on, that might do it. That might actually work on 10. I could probably just add it and put a switch on the back of the thing where I switch it to where it's click this last relay on it, would let off this one and click on this one to make it work on 10. That's probably the mod for these things. So I'll look into that. I really don't care if this thing works on 10 or not, but it'd be nice to have it working just for the heck of it. But what I've done is, the main reason I've got this apart is, like I said, I'm going to go through, I'm going to change out these caps on the filament, the filament choke, because you're transmitting into the end of this thing, and see these caps, I'm going to replace these. I'm going to replace these caps, but look at this has got that old style plate choke in it, all one tall winding. See that? And I guess when they came out, when they finally stopped making this one, they went to the AL-80 and redesigned it again. They were still using this same plate choke, or one similar, but it was all one winding. And on down the road, I don't know if it was towards the end of the AL-80 production run, or if they made the final change on the AL-80Bs. But this is the choke that I'm putting in here. This is the correct one you're supposed to have. So this will make it like the modern AL-80B. And this is, see how it's got the separation between the windings. This is what you want. And this will work on the work bands. And by the way, this is not one from MFJ. This is one of the chokes that came from Ameritron before MFJ took them over. This is one of the first ones this is when they finally went to these, because I've noticed that the MFJ ones, that they're like a lot, they're not as heavy as this one. This one will handle more current and more power. This one's got heavier, a little bit heavier wire. And I found a place that's got new old stock. They bought a lot of Ameritron stuff before MFJ took them over, or shortly after. These are the ones that Ameritron made, not the ones that are coming from MFJ now. It's still Ameritron, but of course MFJ is just, what I've noticed is all like the AL-80B, they're using really cheap components inside. I've seen pictures of them. They've got like a phenolic, tube socket base. This has got heavier components in it. And that's why I wanted to get the heavier choke. But I've got this. I've got two new .001s. These are 10 kV instead of 7.5 kV. So I'm going to replace these two old ones. There's a .001 to bypass in the ground at the base of the plate choke. So I've got a bunch of these. These are like 30 kV. They're Chinese, but they're 30 kV. So they'll handle at least 10 anyway. And then I've got some bigger 30K .01s, .01 mics for the filament windings. And I got two more coming. They only had the two, and I found two more of the exact same ones somewhere else. So those are going to be here. I think they're going to be here today, as a matter of fact, even though it's Saturday. I think I saw it scheduled for delivery. But anyway, that's kind of what I'm doing. And I was looking this thing over, and one thing too that I noticed, if you look at the schematic to it, one thing they added, see this, the filament winding for the 3-500Z? Well, if you look at the center tap, it goes right to that 47K resistor to ground. There's no diode, there's no zener in there like they're supposed to be. So if you look at the AL-80 circuit, see that ZD1? That zener is supposed to be there. They added that because that was a problem. It makes the amp run cooler, and it helps regulate the voltage to the filament, the center tap. That's what you want on these amplifiers. Because what I've noticed is when I key up sometimes, that ever so often there's like a static bias, like for the IG current and stuff, and it will come up a certain amount. And what happens is, I was noticing it was kind of bouncing around a little bit, which means the thing's not stable, and it needs that zener. So I do have, it's a 10 watt, 7.5 volt zener, and I've got one. See that? There it is. So what's the number on it? It's a 1N. Oh God, what's the number? Oh, here we go. I got it from Newark. It's a 1N 2971B, 2N2971B. It's a 7.5 10 volt zener. Now the thing is, I've looked around on the web for pics of the inside of the AL-80A, which is what this other schematic is, and I don't know how they were mounting this thing. I mean, were they not? Because see, you can't. It's not designed for the thing. It's not designed to be stud mounted to ground. It's in series with that line. See how they're doing it? It's in series with it. It's just in series. So basically, the center tap goes through the zener, and it goes to 47K to ground is what it does. That's how they're doing it. That's how they're biasing the thing. That's how they fixed it on this one to make it stable. That's why this thing needs it. But I'm wondering if I should just put this on a little metal L bracket and isolate insulate the L bracket from ground. I think I can stick it. These are the filament leads here. It's supposed to be the yellow and the green and the yellow wire. So I got to figure out which one of these three it is. But is that the? No, that's something else. But I got to. Yeah, I see the green and yellow one right there. I see it. It's got the yellow stripe on. I see which one it is. So that's the one. It's going here, and. Holy cow, that resistor is going, somebody's changed. Oh, that's yeah. Was it green, brown? Yeah, that's a 47K. That's it, that's what that is. There's the resistor right there. Somebody's replaced that. So I can just mount it somewhere. I don't know if this needs to be heat sinked or not. Because, if it ever shorted, it's not going to hurt anything since none of it's going to go to ground. It would just short across and be like a piece of jumper wire. So it'd make it back like it is anyway. So if it ever went bad, but I would like to heat sink it on something. So I don't have any pics of the AL-80A, so I'm not sure how they're doing it. But this zener needs to be there. And somebody put a big... that looks like one of those 2 watt. I was going to put a 1 watt in there because it only called for like a 1/2 watt, but somebody's already changed it. they've beefed it up. So I could probably put a better one in there. Looks like that one's gotten kind of hot too, so that Zener needs to be in there. Maybe that's why they had to replace it. So, but that's a must. So you can see what I'm going to do. I'm doing just the slide updates on this amp to get it up to where it needs to be, more like the AL-80A where they fixed a lot of the problems. But that plate choke that's the wrong way to do it. Now also, I have one of those parasitic suppressor Cummins, the one where the guy took that certain kind of wire and made the loop with the two resistors going across. I have one of those coming. It's going to be here in the next 2 or 3 days. So I'm going to have this thing apart for at least a few days before I get everything finished and get that last part in. That's the final part that I know is going to get here last. Now, one more thing. This fan started making noise yesterday morning. And Ameritron does sell these fans. They got brand new ones, but they're like $100. They're on MFJ's website. They're $100, and I'm gonna search around. This one's actually got a metal frame. It's heavy. I'm sure the new ones are plastic, right? This has got a metal frame, but I was gonna take it off there and kind of take it apart. I don't know if maybe one of the bearings is shot in it, and that's it sounds like the fan blade's starting to wobble. And I think maybe the bearings are gone. Or maybe if I take it apart and clean it and re-grease it, I'll see what happens, but I might be able to repair it. I'll look at that first before I go ahead and order a new one. But if I think I'm going to have to replace this fan. I mean, this amplifier was made back in 1983, so it's what, 39 years old? This thing's almost 40 years old. It's getting close to being an antique. So, you know, it is what it is. But anyway, one thing I noticed, I don't know whether the guy ever had to replace this transformer, maybe got a new one from Ameritron, I don't know, but somebody's put some of these huge, long bolts, and the bolts don't look like they match. And one of them's missing the washer, so I think somebody's had it out of here at one point. But I'm gonna go down to the hardware store, I'm gonna get the same size threads, but shorter bolts for this thing. I'm gonna redo it. I mean, basically they're slotted screws on the other side, but you know, I mean, I can get the same kind. I'll just get the stainless steel hardware with shorter ones, and I'm going to replace all 4 of these, because if you look at it, one of these is coming up close to the windings on this thing, and I mean, there's a couple of them, and I'm like, these screws are way too long. So I'm going to fix that, because not only that, they're kind of rusted on the bottom side, so I'm going to replace them. Somebody might have changed them. This transformer might have been a replacement. I don't know. It looks like it was inspected too, so it could be the original one, but this amp works great. I mean, I've been having a blast with it, you know? And I got to pull the meter lights out. I need to see what kind of lights these are. Are these the kind that unplug? I can't tell. It's kind of hard to do this when you can't, you know, with the phone. I'm trying not to, because if I start doing this video will have a habit of flipping. It'll rotate on me, and when I go to make it, I've got to figure out a way to rotate it back in the middle of the sequence. So you can see the lamps. I got to replace those lamps. Those are supposed to be 16-volt lamps. So I'm going to check the voltages going to them and see what it is. It's probably hot. Maybe 18-volt lamps, 20-volt lamps would be better. Or I can put a series resistor in there to limit the current to get it down. It would probably make them last a long time. And I think what I might do is I might make it, depends on if I want to go through the extra work or not. I might make it to where the lights only come on when you take the thing out of standby. When you put it in standby, the lights go back off to save the lights, right? That might be a neat thing to do, because all I got to do, I looked at the schematic, you just got to move the connections on the other side of the switch. It's simple. It's a simple mod. So there the lights come on. That might be what I do on it. That might be worth it. But the final thing I will do, and I'm not going to do it right now, is I am going to, looks like these are the original filter caps. They're 125 mics. And I found some 150s, modern ones. They're smaller. They're the same type. Of course, they have the black PVC around them. But that's what I'm going to do. I found some smaller ones, but I found some 150 mics. So I'm going to bump them up 25 mics each to give the supply a little bit more oomph, you know, a little bit more storage. That'll help a bunch too. Now the thing I am going to try to do today, or before I put this thing back together, is the glitch resistor. The one thing you want to do is from the output of this power supply filter board on the final output where the line goes to the tube, the plate connection, wherever it's coming from, you want to put a series resistor, a high voltage like anywhere between 10 to 20 ohms. 20 is a little bit too big. Most people like to use like 12, 15, 18 ohm stuff. So I'm going to put 10 ohms in there. What I did was I got on Mauser's website and I found these ohmites. These are 3,000 volt resistors. They'll handle 3,000 volts. They're 6 watts apiece, and these are 20 ohms. I'm going to just put these two in parallel. I'll put a little bit of space into them so they don't ever arc between each other. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but I'll add a little bit of space. I tried to find a single resistor, but I kept searching and I kept searching. This one will handle like 300 some odd joules. This one will handle it. And I calculated the current. Say if I load this thing up, if I get up to like say 650 mils when I'm peaking it up on CW to tune it, and I just put it. I don't operate CW more. When I got my advanced class years ago, I had to get up to like I was up to about 15 words a minute. So I had an easy time passing the 13 words a minute. But after I passed that code test, I forgot. I just forgot CW. I said, I'm not a CW guy anyway. So I've forgotten my code. I probably couldn't pass 5 words a minute now if I tried. But I could probably come close. I could probably get some of the characters. I could probably get partial words spelled out maybe 8 words a minute. But it's been so many years since I've done that. But I just tune it up on CW because that's, you don't want audio on while you're trying to pick this thing up to tune it. So I just tune it in 100 watt CW mode and peak up, loading the plate on it to get max power out on the external watt meter. That's how I do it. So, but I've got to figure out how I'm going to put these. Are a little bit long. I'm not sure how I'm going to put these in there. I need to put them down. I may have to wait until I go to replace these filter caps. I wanted to add these in there now because if the tube starts getting gassy and it glows before when the things come up, it's gonna kill the whole thing. You're gonna blow parts and maybe the transformer. So that's why you want to add this glitch resistor in there, this setup. So, but they've got to be isolated from the chassis. So I need to see if I can find a place in there. I mean, you want them as close to the filter cap bank as possible, but if I can't, I'll just, as long as it's before the tube, but before where it goes to the plate choke, you're okay. So that's what I'm going to try to do. It's probably down. This is the coax that goes to this input tuning board, I can tell. So one more thing, it looks like they do have a ground connection on this board right here. I was kind of wondering about that. I thought, is this how they're grounding that input board? This thing is loose. The screw down here is loose, and it's not really, this really should be grounded too. It doesn't look like it is. It looks like it's a loose connection. I don't know if maybe there's supposed to be looks like there's supposed to be one of the slip-on lock washers that are missing because somebody at one point had this thing apart to work on it. So, but this thing has been fully operational. I've been pretty happy with it. If you can see, it has one of those newer Chinese-made RF Part 3-500 ZGs with the graphite core. Now, don't get it wrong. Even though these things come from China, these tubes are way more durable than the original iMac 3-500Zs. I mean, I don't recommend anybody track down iMac 3-500Zs and put in here. You want this graphite anode in these things. These things are, even though they come from China, they're a lot tougher than the old iMacs. And I'll tell everybody I come in contact with that because they are. Now you can find pinna laboratories, you can still get new pinna laboratories, but I think it's the same tube. These probably are pinnas, and the RF Parts is actually just having them put their name on them. Because you can get this same tube with like 3 or 4 different brands on the front of it. So it's probably pinna laboratories is where it's coming from, because they are still around. So this is the amp, and this is what I'm doing to it. Did I leave anything out? I don't think so, but that's my plan. I'm just going to check things. I'm going to check the diodes. There's a couple, when I go taking this board out here, there's a few diodes I'm going to replace. Oh, that one more thing, yeah. I was looking at the parts list for this thing, and they're talking about, the supply rectifiers. And it shows that they're using the, what is it, see, I'm going to replace, like there's a 1N005. I'm going to replace it with like a 1N007 or one of the bigger ones that I've got. And I'm going to replace, see, what is it? Yeah, the M4G5s. And I'm looking at these. And they say 3 amps at 1,000 volts. Well, yes, here's the old data sheet to those things, and you cannot find these diodes anymore. There might be somebody, I did look and I couldn't find them anywhere. There might be somebody that has an equivalent, but I'm looking at these, I'm looking at the code, and this is a typo. These are not 1,000-volt diodes, they're 600 volts. M4, what did I say it was? It was an M, because I wanted to point that out. If anybody ever finds one of these things, they've got the wrong data on this M4G5. So M4, the 4 stands for 3 amps of current, see? But the G stands for 600 volts. These are not the diodes that are in here. If this part number is correct, they've got 600 volt diodes in here in series. They're not 1,000-volt diodes. So I'm probably just going to stick in those, what are they, 1N58. I'm going to replace those with, was it 1N58, whatever the 1,000-volt 3 amp diodes I've been using. I'll just put those in their place and be done with it. But somebody made a boo-boo. They don't have 1,000-volt diodes in here because it would have an M. See, first code represents the series, so that's not, well, yeah, that's not, somebody made a mistake. They probably read the sheet wrong, and they thought that first letter meant that it was 1,000 volts. See where it says M? That's not correct. It's not. It's a 4 amp, the 4 stands for 3 amps, which they got that correct, and the G stands for 600 volts. They've got it wrong. They've got it completely wrong. So somebody goofed when they looked at this old data sheet at Ameritron when they designed this amp. They got 600 volt diodes in here. Now, they seem to be working. This thing's almost 40 years old and they haven't blown, so they're okay, but I am going to replace those with those higher current, the same current with 1,000-volt diodes, those 1N58. What are they, 5804s? Whatever I've been using on all my other stuff. I got a big bag of them. I'll just put those in there. So that's kind of the plan, and hope that all makes sense. But this amp works fantastic. I just got to fix the problem. This choke is the main issue. This is the wrong choke to put in this amp. I'm surprised that thing has never overheated on some of the bands. And I can't believe it's still intact, but I guess they got lucky. It seems to be okay. Maybe it's this big plate they have on top of this choke, which this is going to be gone. I got that new parasitic suppressor coming. I'm going to use the same plate cap. The suppressor is going to be mounted on the bottom side so it doesn't arc against the top of the chassis. So people were complaining originally they had this tube socket up too high and this was too close to the top of the lid and they were getting arcing. Well, they lowered it down and the arcing's gone. But if I put that big parasitic suppressor loop in here, I sure as heck don't want it that arcing to the top of the lid, so I need to make sure it's on the bottom side, and I'll bend it down just a little bit. So that's all for now, and hope this all makes sense. This is W5HRO with the AL-80, the original AL-80, not the A or not the B, it's the original one. 73s.